HOA President Karen poured gasoline around my house and lit the match. My 7-month pregnant wife Emma was inside, screaming as flames consumed her. Karen smiled, watching her burn alive. What Karen didn't know. I'm a Navy SEAL who just returned home. She picked the wrong family to destroy. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The smell hit me first. That acrid, chemical stench mixed with something worse, something I'd smelled before in war zones. Burning flesh. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard I heard the leather creak as I turned onto Maple Grove Lane, 3 days early from my deployment. I was supposed to surprise Emma. We'd been apart for 6 months, and she was 7 months pregnant with our first child, a little girl we'd already named Hope. I had her favorite flowers in the passenger seat and a teddy bear for the baby. Then I saw the smoke. Black columns rising into the afternoon sky. My heart stopped when I realized where it was coming from. Our house. Our white 2-story home with the blue shutters Emma had picked out herself was engulfed in flames. I abandoned the car in the middle of the street and ran. Emma. My voice tore from my throat. Emma. Neighbors stood in their yards, phones pressed to their ears, but nobody was moving toward the house. Nobody was trying to help. I could hear sirens in the distance, but they weren't here yet. They weren't here now. I didn't think. I couldn't think. My wife was in there. My daughter was in there. I kicked through the front door, and the heat slammed into me like a physical wall. Flames crawled up the walls, across the ceiling. The smoke was thick, black, suffocating. Emma. I dropped low, using every survival technique the Navy had drilled into me. I knew our house layout by heart. I crawled through the living room, past our wedding photos melting in their frames. Then I heard it. A weak cough from upstairs. The stairs were partially collapsed, fire eating through the wood, but I didn't care. I climbed, ignoring the heat burning through my clothes, through my skin. Each step groaned under my weight, threatening to give way. I found her in our bedroom. Emma was unconscious near the window, her pregnant belly visible beneath her smoke-stained dress. Her beautiful dark hair was singed. Burns covered her arms where she tried to shield herself. Baby, I've got you. I've got you both. My voice cracked as I lifted her. She was so light, too light. I held her against my chest, one arm supporting her, the other protecting her belly. Getting back down those stairs was hell. Literally. The fire had spread, the heat was unbearable, and I could feel my skin blistering. But I'd survived Taliban ambushes, I'd survived enemy fire, and I sure as hell wasn't going to let a fire take my family. I crashed through a window on the first floor, glass slicing through my uniform as I twisted my body to take the impact and protect Emma. We hit the grass, and I rolled away from the house, keeping her close. Help! Someone help! I screamed at the neighbors who still just stood there, watching. Call an ambulance. Now. Finally, people started moving. The fire trucks arrived moments later, but I didn't care about the house anymore. I cradled Emma's head in my lap, feeling for a pulse. It was there, faint but there. Stay with me, Emma. Please stay with me. Hope needs you. I need you. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second. Jake. She whispered, her voice barely audible. Karen, she did this. Then she passed out again. The ambulance ride was the longest 20 minutes of my life. The paramedics worked on Emma, checking her vitals, checking the baby. I sat there covered in burns and soot, refusing treatment until I knew my wife and daughter were okay. Sir, you need medical attention, one paramedic insisted. Not until I know they're alive. At the hospital, they tried to separate us. Tried to take me to a different room for my injuries. I refused to leave Emma's side until a nurse, an older woman with kind eyes, gently took my arm. Soldier, your wife needs surgery. The baby is in distress. The doctors need room to work, and you need to let them save your family. You can't help them if you collapse from smoke inhalation or infection. That got through to me. I let them lead me away, but only after kissing Emma's forehead. Fight, baby. Fight for hope. I'll be right here. The next 6 hours were torture. They treated my burns, 2nd degree on my arms and back. They gave me oxygen for the smoke inhalation. They cleaned and stitched the cuts from the glass. But physical pain was nothing compared to not knowing if Emma and Hope were alive. Finally, a doctor in surgical scrubs approached me. His face was grave. Mr. Mitchell. I stood up so fast the 4-pole almost fell over. How are they? Your wife is alive. We had to perform an emergency C-section. The baby. He paused, and my heart dropped into my stomach. Your daughter is alive, but she's extremely premature and in critical condition. She's in the NICU. Your wife has severe burns covering 30% of her body, smoke inhalation damage to her lungs, and she's in a medically induced coma. The world tilted. I grabbed the wall for support. Can I see them? Yes, but Mr. Mitchell, you need to prepare yourself. Your wife's recovery will be long and painful. Your daughter, the next 72 hours are critical. They took me to the NICU first. Through the glass, I saw her, tiny, so impossibly tiny, hooked up to tubes and monitors. 3 pounds, they told me. Fighting for every breath. My daughter. Hope. She's a fighter, the NICU nurse said softly. Just like her daddy. Then they took me to Emma. The woman I'd loved since high school, the woman who'd waited for me through 3 deployments, the woman who danced in the kitchen and sang off-key and made our house a home, she lay still and broken in that hospital bed. Bandages covered her arms and parts of her face. A ventilator breathed for her. Machines beeped and hummed. I took her hand carefully, so carefully, afraid I might hurt her. I'm here, Emma. I'm here now, and I'm never leaving again. You hear me? You fight. You come back to me. Come back to Hope. She needs her mama. I stayed there all night, holding her hand, talking to her, begging her to wake up. The police came the next morning. 2 detectives, a man named Rodriguez and a woman named Chen. They found me in Emma's room, unshaven, still in hospital scrubs since my uniform had been destroyed. Mr. Mitchell, we need to ask you some questions about the fire. I looked up, and they must have seen something in my eyes because Rodriguez softened his tone. Before she lost consciousness, your wife said a name. Karen. Can you tell us about that? Everything clicked into place. Karen Hutchinson. President of the Maple Grove Homeowners Association. The woman who'd made Emma's life hell for the past 3 months while I was deployed. Karen Hutchinson, I said, my voice cold. She lives 4 houses down. White House with the Rose Garden. Can you tell us about your history with Miss Hutchinson? I took a breath. We moved into Maple Grove 2 years ago. Everything was fine until Karen became HOA president 8 months ago. She started finding violations everywhere. Our grass was half an inch too long. Our mailbox was the wrong shade of black. Our holiday decorations went up a day too early. Detective Chen took notes while Rodriguez nodded for me to continue. It got worse when I deployed 6 months ago. Emma was pregnant, dealing with morning sickness, working full-time. Karen didn't care. She'd measure our grass with a ruler. She'd leave violation notices daily. The fines started piling up, $50 here, $100 there. My hands clenched into fists, and I had to consciously relax them. Emma wouldn't want me losing control. Emma was too kind. She tried to comply with everything, even though it was ridiculous. But 3 weeks ago, Emma planted a vegetable garden. She was excited about growing organic food for the baby. It was in our backyard, not even visible from the street. "Let me guess," Rodriguez said grimly. Karen had a problem with it. She claimed it violated some obscure HOA rule about unauthorized landscaping changes. She demanded Emma remove it within 24 hours or face a $1,000 fine. Emma was exhausted, heavily pregnant, and she snapped. She told Karen no. Said Karen could take her rules and shove them. Despite everything, I felt a flash of pride. My sweet Emma standing up to a bully. Karen went ballistic, I continued. She started a campaign to force us out. She would stand outside our house taking pictures, measuring things. She'd call the county on fake code violations. She got other HOA board members to vote for increasing our fines. Emma called me crying in Japan, begging me to come home, but I couldn't. I was in the middle of an operation. Detective Chen looked up from her notes. "Did Ms. Hutchinson ever threaten your wife directly?" "Yes." The word came out hard. Emma recorded one of their conversations last week. Karen told her that she'd make sure Emma regretted ever moving to Maple Grove. Said she'd find a way to eliminate the problem of our family. Do you still have that recording? It should be on Emma's phone, if it survived the fire. But I doubted it had. Rodriguez exchanged a glance with Chen. "Mr. Mitchell, the fire investigators found something. The fire started in multiple locations simultaneously. They found evidence of accelerant, gasoline, poured around the exterior of your home. This was arson." I already knew that. Emma's words before she passed out had told me that. But hearing it confirmed made rage boil up inside me. Someone had deliberately set fire to my home with my pregnant wife inside. "We checked your neighborhood security cameras," Chen said. "We have footage of Ms. Hutchinson's vehicle driving past your house 3 times in the hour before the fire started. We also have footage of her parked down the street with a clear view of your home when the fire began. Are you arresting her?" My voice was deadly calm. "We're bringing her in for questioning. But Mr. Mitchell, I need you to promise me you'll let us handle this. I can see in your eyes what you're thinking. Don't do anything that will land you in prison while your wife and daughter need you." He was right. They needed me. But the part of me that had been trained to neutralize threats, the part that had seen combat, that part wanted Karen Hutchinson to pay in ways the legal system couldn't deliver. "I'll let you do your job," I said. "But Detective Rodriguez? You better make sure she never sees the outside of a prison cell." The next week was the hardest of my life, and I'd been through SEAL training, combat missions, and situations where death seemed certain. But nothing prepared me for watching my wife and daughter fight for their lives. Hope stayed in the NICU, her tiny body fighting to develop lungs that weren't ready for the world. I spent hours beside her incubator, talking to her, singing the lullabies Emma had picked out. The nurses said premature babies could hear their parents' voices, that it helped them fight. "Your mama's fighting too, baby girl," I'd whisper. "She's so strong. You got her strength. And you got my stubbornness, so I know you're not giving up." Emma remained in the coma. The doctor said it was necessary, her body needed to focus on healing, not on the pain. But seeing her so still, so unlike my vibrant wife, was agony. I split my time between their rooms, refusing to leave the hospital. The nurses brought me food I barely touched. Other SEALs from my unit came by, offering support, bringing supplies. My commanding officer came personally to tell me I had as much time as I needed. On day 5, Karen Hutchinson was formally arrested and charged with attempted murder, arson, and a list of other charges that would put her away for life if convicted. On day 6, Hope's condition stabilized. She was still critical, still tiny, but the doctors were cautiously optimistic. On day 7, something changed. I was reading to Emma from her favorite book, a romance novel she'd been in the middle of when I left for deployment, when I felt it. The slightest pressure on my hand. So faint I thought I'd imagined it. Emma. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. Baby, can you hear me? Another squeeze, stronger this time. I hit the call button for the nurse, not taking my eyes off Emma's face. Her eyelids fluttered. Come on, baby. Come back to me. Hope needs you. I need you. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then finding mine. I saw confusion, then recognition, then fear. Jake. Her voice was barely a whisper, rough from the ventilator tube they'd removed 2 days ago. I'm here. I'm right here. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't care. You're safe. You're in the hospital. You've been in a coma for 7 days. Her hand moved to her belly, panic flooding her eyes when she found it flat. Hope. It came out as a desperate cry. She's alive, Emma. Our daughter is alive. She's in the NICU. She's tiny and she's fighting, but she's alive. Emma sobbed, and I held her hand while the medical team rushed in to check her vitals. The doctor, Dr. Patel, who'd been our angel through this nightmare, smiled with genuine joy. Welcome back, Mrs. Mitchell. You gave us quite a scare. Over the next hour, they examined Emma, explained her injuries, told her about the C-section. Every piece of news was another blow, the burns that would scar, the lung damage that would take months to heal, the long recovery ahead. But Emma was alive. She was awake. And when they finally wheeled her down to the NICU to see Hope, when she saw our tiny daughter fighting in that incubator, both of us cried. She's so small, Emma whispered. She's a Mitchell. Small but mighty. I wrapped my arm carefully around Emma's shoulders. Just like her mama. Karen did this. Emma's voice hardened. I remember. She was outside the house. I saw her pouring something around the foundation. I tried to run, tried to get out, but the fire spread so fast. I thought we were going to die. She's arrested. She's going to prison for the rest of her miserable life. Good. Emma's hand pressed against the incubator, as close as she could get to touching Hope. Because if she'd killed our baby, Jake, not even God himself could have saved her from me. That's when I knew my Emma was going to be okay. Scarred, changed, but still the fierce woman I'd fallen in love with. While Emma began her painful recovery, the police investigation uncovered the full depth of Karen's madness. Detective Rodriguez came to the hospital a week after Emma woke up. He looked tired but satisfied. We went through Karen Hutchinson's home and computer with a warrant, he said. What we found. Mrs. Mitchell, you weren't her first target. Emma, sitting up in bed with her burns freshly bandaged, tensed. I took her hand. What do you mean? I asked. Karen Hutchinson has been HOA president for 8 months. In that time, 3 other families have been forced to sell their homes and move due to her harassment. We found detailed files on her computer, surveillance photos, notes about their schedules, lists of violations she'd fabricated. Chen, who'd come with Rodriguez, pulled out a tablet. There's more. We found evidence that Karen committed insurance fraud by filing false claims. We found documents showing she'd been embezzling HOA dues. And we found her diary. Her diary? Emma asked. She wrote everything down. Her hatred of you, Mrs. Mitchell, was personal. You were young, pregnant, beautiful. You had a husband who was a war hero. She wrote that you flaunted your perfect life and that you needed to be taught a lesson. The entry from the day of the fire. Chen paused, her professional mask slipping to show disgust. She wrote that she was going to cleanse the neighborhood of the problem, and that if you died, it would be a lesson to others about respecting authority. Emma's hand trembled in mine. I wanted to punch something, wanted to find Karen and make her feel every ounce of pain she'd caused. That diary is evidence of premeditation, Rodriguez said. Combined with the security footage, the accelerant evidence, and a witness who saw her buying gas cans the morning of the fire, the DA says this is the strongest case he's seen in 20 years. What about the HOA? I asked. Did they know what she was doing? The other board members claimed they didn't know the extent of her harassment. We're investigating that. But here's something that might interest you, the HOA's insurance company is denying any coverage for your losses. They're claiming Karen acted outside her authority. So we get nothing. Emma's voice rose. We lost everything, our home, all our possessions, our sense of safety, and we get nothing. Actually, Chen said with a small smile, that's not quite true. We've been contacted by a lawyer named Margaret Whitmore. She specializes in cases involving HOAs. She saw your story on the news and wants to represent you pro bono. She thinks you have an excellent case not just against Karen, but against the HOA itself for enabling her behavior. Emma and I looked at each other. Justice through the legal system. It felt too slow, too uncertain. But it was the right path. The path that wouldn't take me away from my family. Set up a meeting, I said. Hope reached £4 3 weeks after the fire. It was a milestone worth celebrating. The NICU staff brought a tiny cake, and Emma got to hold our daughter for the first time since the C-section. I watched my wife cradle our baby against her chest, careful of the feeding tube and monitor wires, and I took a mental picture of that moment. After so much darkness, here was light. Emma's physical recovery was progressing. The burns were healing, though the scars would be permanent. Her lungs were improving with therapy. But the emotional scars were deeper. She had nightmares every night. Waking up screaming, convinced she smelled smoke. I'd hold her, remind her where we was, that she was safe. But safe was a relative term when we had nowhere to go. The house was a total loss. Insurance would eventually pay out, but that would take months. In the meantime, we were living in an extended stay hotel paid for by the Navy Relief Society. Everything we'd owned was gone, wedding photos, baby clothes we'd bought, the rocking chair Emma's grandmother had given us. But we were alive. Margaret Whitmore turned out to be a fierce woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and the tenacity of a bulldog. She came to the hospital with a stack of files and a plan. The HOA has significant liability here, she explained. They received multiple complaints about Karen's harassment from other residents. They did nothing. That's negligent supervision. We're going to sue them for damages, medical expenses, property loss, emotional distress, and punitive damages to make sure no HOA ever enables this kind of behavior again. What about Karen? Emma asked. Karen is facing criminal charges. If she's convicted, and she will be, you can file a civil suit against her personally. She won't have much, but her assets can be seized. More importantly, she'll spend the rest of her life paying for what she did. I want her to feel what I felt, Emma said quietly. Trapped, helpless, afraid. Margaret's expression softened. Prison will do that. But Emma, the best revenge is living well. It's recovering, raising your daughter, rebuilding your life. It's showing her that she didn't break you. Karen's trial began 4 months after the fire. By then, Hope was home, still small, but healthy and thriving. Emma had been through multiple skin graft surgeries. I'd taken early retirement from the Navy to be with my family full-time. We attended every day of the trial, Emma's scarred hands folded in her lap, my arm around her shoulders. Seeing Karen in person again made my blood boil. She sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her perfect blonde hair pulled back, her face carefully blank. The woman who tried to murder my wife and daughter showed no remorse. The prosecution built a devastating case. They showed the surveillance footage of Karen driving past our house, showed her purchasing gas cans, showed her parked down the street. They brought in a fire investigator who explained how the fire was deliberately set. They presented Karen's diary, reading her hateful words aloud. Emma gripped my hand tighter with each entry. Then came the hardest part. Emma had to testify. She walked to the stand slowly, still healing, still scarred. She told the jury about the harassment, about the threats, about seeing Karen pour gasoline around our home. I was 7 months pregnant, Emma said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. I was scared and alone because my husband was deployed. I begged her to stop. I apologized for the garden. I offered to remove it. She said it was too late. She said I needed to learn my place. What happened the day of the fire? The prosecutor asked gently. I saw her outside. I didn't understand at first. Then I smelled gasoline. I tried to get out, but the doors were locked from the outside. She'd blocked them somehow. The fire started so fast. Everywhere at once. I couldn't breathe. I thought about my baby, about Jake coming home to nothing. I tried to break a window, but I passed out from the smoke. What would you say to the defendant if you could? Emma looked directly at Karen for the first time. I'd ask her why. Why she hated me so much. What I did that was so terrible it deserved death. But I realized she can't answer that because there is no answer. She's just cruel. Evil. And I hope she spends the rest of her life thinking about the baby she almost killed. The defense tried to paint Karen as a dedicated community volunteer who'd had a mental break. They brought in psychiatrists who testified about stress and delusions. But the jury saw through it. After just 3 hours of deliberation, they came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Karen's face finally showed emotion, shock, then rage. She started screaming at the jury, at the judge, at us. You people think you're better than everyone else. That house was an eyesore. You deserved what you got. Security restrained her as the judge pounded his gavel. Emma buried her face in my shoulder, sobbing with relief. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge showed no mercy. Ms. Hutchinson, you committed one of the most heinous crimes this court has seen. You attempted to murder a pregnant woman over a garden. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no humanity. I hereby sentence you to 50 years in prison without possibility of parole. 50 years. Karen was 63. She'd die in prison. As they led her away in shackles, she looked at us one last time. I met her gaze steadily, my arm around Emma, thinking about Hope asleep in her stroller. We'd won. The civil case against the HOA settled out of court for $2.3 million. Margaret negotiated brilliantly, and the HOA's insurance company paid rather than face trial. The HOA itself dissolved shortly after. None of the residents wanted anything to do with it anymore. Maple Grove became a community without restrictive covenants, and property values actually increased. With the settlement money, we bought a new house, not in Maple Grove. We couldn't go back there. Instead, we found a beautiful place on 3 acres outside the city. No HOA. No neighbors close enough to complain about anything. Emma designed every inch of it. She put in a huge vegetable garden. She painted the shutters bright blue. She hung wind chimes that some people might consider tacky, but we loved. Hope grew. She hit milestones late. Her premature birth had lasting effects, but she hit them. Her first word was, Mama. Her first steps were toward me, her tiny arms outstretched. Emma's scars faded somewhat with treatment, but they'd never disappear completely. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at them in the mirror, sadness crossing her face. You're beautiful, I'd tell her. These scars mean you're a survivor. They mean you're strong enough to live through hell and come out the other side. I used to worry about stretch marks, she'd say with a sad laugh. Now I have burns covering my arms. Now you have evidence that you protected our daughter with your body. Any mark on you is a mark of love. It took time, but Emma slowly healed emotionally too. The nightmares became less frequent. She could smell smoke without panicking. She could talk about the fire without breaking down. Therapy helped. Both individual and couples counseling. I had my own demons, guilt that I wasn't there, rage at Karen, helplessness from not being able to protect my family. But we healed together. A year after the fire, Emma received a letter. The return address was the women's correctional facility where Karen was serving her sentence. Emma's hands shook as she held it. Should I open it? That's up to you. You don't owe her anything, not even your attention. Emma stared at the envelope for a long moment, then tore it open. She read silently, her expression hardening. What does it say? I asked. She wants me to forgive her. She says prison has changed her, that she's found God, that she understands what she did was wrong. Emma's voice dripped with disgust. She says she prays for hope every day. She actually has the audacity to ask if she can see photos. The rage I'd kept carefully controlled for a year flared up. She wants photos of our daughter. The daughter she tried to murder. She says she wants to see that hope is healthy. That it would bring her peace. Emma crumpled the letter. She wants peace. She wants forgiveness. She wants me to make her feel better about trying to kill us. What are you going to do? Emma walked to the fireplace, letter in hand. She tossed it into the flames and watched it burn. I'm going to forget she exists, Emma said. She doesn't get my forgiveness. She doesn't get my anger. She doesn't get anything from me ever again. More letters came over the months. Emma burned them all without reading them. Karen didn't deserve a response. Didn't deserve acknowledgement. Meanwhile, we focused on living. Really living. I got a job as a security consultant. Emma started a blog about surviving trauma that helped other victims. Hope started preschool, a bright, happy child who loved gardens and flowers. We had family dinners every night. We took vacations to the beach. We made new memories to replace the ones that had burned. One day, Emma planted roses in our garden, red roses, dozens of them. What are these for? I asked. They're my revenge roses, she said with a smile. Karen had her perfect rose garden. She was so proud of it. I heard they bulldozed her house, garden and all. So I'm growing roses, better roses, in a bigger garden, in a house filled with love. That's my revenge. Living better than she ever did. 3 years after the fire, a woman came to our door. She was about 50, with tired eyes and an uncertain smile. Mrs. Mitchell. I'm Patricia Hendricks. I'm Karen Hutchinson's sister. Emma tensed beside me. Hope was napping inside, and my instinct was to slam the door. But something in Patricia's expression stopped me. What do you want? My voice was cold. I want to apologize. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I know that doesn't mean anything coming from me. I know sorry doesn't fix what my sister did. But I need you to know that not all of our family is like her. Why are you here? Emma asked. Karen wrote to me last week. She's dying. Cancer. The doctors say she has maybe 3 months. Patricia swallowed hard. She wanted me to contact you. To ask for forgiveness one more time. No, Emma said simply. I understand. I told her I wouldn't do it. I'm not here because she asked. I'm here because I need to tell you what I should have said years ago. Patricia looked at both of us. Karen was always cruel. Even as children. She hurt animals. She bullied other kids. My parents never corrected her. They said she was spirited. As adults, she left a trail of destroyed relationships and burned bridges. Why are you telling us this? I asked. Because you weren't the problem. You were never the problem. Karen destroyed herself with her own hatred. And I should have warned you, warned the neighborhood, warned everyone. But I didn't want to admit my sister was a monster. So I'm sorry. For my silence, for my family's silence. You deserved better. Patricia handed Emma an envelope. This is from me, not Karen. It's a check for $50,000. I know money doesn't fix anything, but it's from the sale of Karen's house. I thought it should go to you and Hope. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I visit the families Karen drove out of Maple Grove. I apologize to all of them. I'm trying to undo some of the damage. I know I can't. But I'm trying. After she left, Emma and I sat on our porch swing, the check untouched between us. What do you think? Emma asked. I think she's trying to make amends for something that wasn't her fault. The sins of the sister aren't her sins. Should we take the money? I thought about it. What would you want to do with it? Emma smiled slowly. Set up a scholarship fund. For children of military families. Call it the Hope Mitchell Resilience Fund. Turn Karen's hatred into something that helps people. That's perfect. We set up the fund the next week. Every year, it would help send a military kid to college. Karen's house money would go toward building futures instead of destroying them. When Karen died 3 months later, we didn't attend the funeral. We didn't acknowledge it at all. We were at the beach with Hope, teaching her to build sandcastles, living our lives. 5 years after the fire, our family had grown. Hope had a little brother named Jack. Emma had published a book about surviving trauma and forgiving yourself. I'd started a nonprofit helping veterans transition to civilian life. We drove past Maple Grove once, curious to see what had become of the neighborhood. Karen's old house was gone, replaced by a small park. Someone had planted a community garden there. Ironic, Emma said softly. Poetic justice, I corrected. Our old lot was empty, overgrown with wildflowers. A "for sale" sign stood in the tall grass. Do you ever think about buying it back? Emma asked. Building new memories? No. Our memories are in our new home. With our kids. With our garden and our wide open spaces where nobody tells us what color our shutters can be. We drove home to our house on the hill. Hope and Jack were drawing with chalk on the driveway. Emma's garden was in full bloom. Wind chimes sang in the breeze. That night, I held Emma on our back porch while the kids chased fireflies. Are you happy? I asked. I am. I'm scarred. I'm changed. Some nights I still wake up smelling smoke. But I'm happy. We survived. We built something beautiful from the ashes. Literally, I said, making her laugh. Karen tried to destroy us. She failed. We're here. We're stronger. We're loved. And she died alone in a prison cell, miserable and full of regret. Is that enough? Does that feel like justice? Emma thought about it. Justice is complicated. She got punished by the law. She lost everything. But real justice? Real justice is us sitting here, safe and together, while our children play. It's choosing joy every day even though we have every reason to be bitter. It's Hope growing up healthy despite being born in the worst circumstances. She took my hand. Karen thought she could break us. She thought she could destroy our family. Instead, she made us unbreakable. That's justice. Living well, loving hard. Refusing to let hate win. In the distance, Hope squealed with laughter as she caught a firefly. Jack clapped his tiny hands. Emma smiled, and even though the scars on her arms were visible in the porch light, all I saw was her strength. You're right, I said. We won. And we had. The Maple Grove fire changed us forever. The scars, physical and emotional, would never fully fade. But we learned that survival isn't about emerging unscathed. It's about emerging with your humanity intact. It's about choosing love over hate, building over destroying, living over merely existing. Karen Hutchinson died in prison, unmourned except by a sister who tried to atone for sins that weren't hers. Her name became a cautionary tale in HOA reform movements. Her legacy was pain. Our legacy became resilience. The Hope Mitchell Resilience Fund has sent 53 military children to college. Emma's book helped thousands of trauma survivors. And we raised our children in a home filled with laughter, love, and the kind of chaotic joy that comes from living without fear. Sometimes at night, I still see Emma in that burning house. I still feel the heat, smell the smoke, hear my own voice screaming her name. Those memories will never leave. But when I wake from those dreams, Emma is beside me, breathing softly. Hope and Jack are asleep down the hall. And I remember, we survived. We won. That's what Karen never understood. You can't kill love with fire. You can't destroy a family with hate. You can only make them stronger. And we became unbreakable. This story is dedicated to every person who has faced senseless cruelty and chosen to survive. To every family that has rebuilt from ashes. To every victim who refused to let hatred define their future. Karen's punishment came from the justice system, 50 years in prison, dying alone and unmourned. But the real victory wasn't her suffering. It was Jake, Emma, and Hope choosing joy despite their scars. It was turning tragedy into purpose through the scholarship fund. It was proving that love is always stronger than hate. Some might say Karen deserved worse. But living a full life, loving deeply, and raising children in peace while your attacker dies alone in a cell. That's the ultimate revenge. That's justice wrapped in grace. The Mitchells didn't just survive, they thrived. And that made all the difference.